Thanks for those who've come here today and those who are watching on our live stream. This is the most serious press event that I've conducted since I announced my candidacy for the mayoralty back in March of this past primary season. At that time, I said the main elements of my campaign was crime, crime, crime. And that was because of the defunding of the police to the tune of $1 billion. But if we go back to July 1st, 2020, with an air of celebration, when Corey Johnson led the city council, along with our mayor, Bill de Blasio, into removing the $1 billion from a $6 billion total budget. And then when Police Commissioner Shea said he agreed to the removal of the money to be reallocated to social service programs, to youth programs, I think a lot of New Yorkers like myself said, okay, what are the ramifications to this? We saw immediately the end of the street crime unit, and as a result, skyrocketing gun violence, gang violence, and no traffic stops being made, which generally prevented gangs from entering into a cycle of revenge shootings. Then we saw the homeless outreach unit of the NYPD disbanded. As a result, endless numbers of emotionally disturbed and homeless people who ended up being a danger to themselves and everyone else. And then lastly, the peddlers unit, as we saw those illegal vendors setting up shop outside of retail establishments all throughout the 5 boroughs of the city of New York. But I said to myself, as I think other New Yorkers said, if you're taking $1 billion out of the budget, what about the most important aspect of the New York City Police Department ever since the attack of 1992 during the Dinkins years on the World Trade Center, and then obviously 9/11, the 20th anniversary this weekend, when Rudy Giuliani was the mayor. The Anti-Terrorism Task Force was created in its wake with the specificity that these men and women, highly trained in doing intel and counterterrorism, would be the first line of defense. In fact, it was Police Commissioner Kelly and Mayor Bloomberg who decided that they would set up a unit that would go beyond what the feds were doing, the FBI itself and the other national security agencies, by actually having men and women in outposts throughout the Middle East as members of the NYPD. We haven't heard much about their operations since, and so as I said to myself on July 1st of 2020, when the $1 billion was removed from the budget, how could the police department be impacted by normal retirements, early retirements, and the fact that they had 2 cadet classes that were postponed at College Point? How could it not have impacted the most important element of the police department? And that had to do with the Anti-Terrorism Task Force. So I did a deep dive, as I'm always wanting to do, and started to approach men and women who actually work within the NYPD. Early this morning, I was at one police plaza to double check the information that I had received from active members who were parts of these units. And I had recently been out to the Critical Response Command Unit on Randall's Island, one of the many outposts that are under the jurisdiction of John Miller, who deals with the Intel Division and the Counterterrorism Division. Now, when we look at the numbers at their height, there were 1,400 trained professional men and women, NYPD police officers assigned to those tasks. And these were men and women who didn't just graduate the academy. They had to have had a certain number of years as members of the department, and they had to have certain skill levels. From 1,400, the numbers have plummeted to presently where they are, 1,036. That's a reduction of 26% of the men and women who were working in that division. Then you had the Strategic Response Group, which I remember as a young boy was the Tactical Patrol Force. And it was Police Commissioner Bratton in 2008 after the terrorist attacks at Mumbai, and because they were so well organized by the Lashkar Islamists from Pakistan, in which it resulted in about 12 to 14 shootings and bombings over the course of 4 days, that he decided that they had to repurpose the tactical patrol force and created the Strategic Response Group. These are the men and women who were trained in heavy armaments, very visible in the streets. At their peak, they had 600 men and women involved in their unit. They are presently down to 500. So that means we're short about 500 police officers who would be regularly assigned to anti-terrorism activity. Now, the Strategic Response Group also has other activities as part of their regiment, but a good deal of the time they're involved in anti-terrorist patrols and intel. So I say to myself now, maybe I'm the only candidate for mayor thinking this and investigating this, or anyone else who is running for office. We have a mayor who has dropped the ball, and we're not safe in New York City. We're not safe in the streets. We're not safe in the subways. We're not safe in the parks. We're not safe in any of the 5 boroughs. This is a reflection of conversations that I've had with a wide variety of people, not only Republicans and conservatives, but liberals, progressives, Democrats, and independents. That's like a universal theme. The mayor has completely dropped the ball when it comes to public safety. Then recently we saw, with the flooding that has occurred now on 3 separate occasions, that the mayor, who always wanted to blame other events, such as global warming and climate change, refused to acknowledge that it was his inability to have his departments, especially the DEP, clean the catch basins and the sewers. And I remember when I first said this, which was basic common sense, people said, oh, no, it's bigger than that, Curtis. I said, well, it may well be bigger than that. But it starts with the fundamental basics. And then, as the elected officials began making their rounds, especially in Woodside, when de Blasio went with AOC and Schumer to talk to the residents there who were underwater and had so many of their personal possessions destroyed, their heirlooms destroyed, they all pointed to the sewers. They all pointed to the catch basins. They even said, it starts here. No one has cleaned them out. In fact, nobody has cleaned them out for years. And I noticed today, in advance of a flood warning, the mayor is finally saying, oh yeah, we're going to clean out the catch basins and clean out the sewers. Well, I've invited the mayor and Governor Hochul to go into the sewers with me, because I've been there many times and I can actually show them how the debris piles up. This is just an example. Can't trust the mayor to provide public safety. Can't trust the mayor to deal with what will be maybe additional flooding and the past flooding. So why, with the most important element that a mayor has on his agenda, providing public safety to prevent another terrorist attack against America, because 3 times is the charm, and they all want to come here to New York City. Why should we trust anything he says? Americans themselves are no longer trusting of our government to protect them. Years ago, about 64% of the American population, according to polls, was satisfied that we could ward off any potential terrorist attacks. That number is now dipped below 49%. I think if a poll were taken in New York City, it would even be less. So this is not an attack on John Miller. It's not an attack on the special men and women who were involved in gathering intel or doing counterterrorism or part of the Joint Terrorist Task Force, that it's a combination of FBI agents and NYPD detectives. This is an attack on the mayor, who insists that we're safe and secure and there are no threats whatsoever. And I say to you, let's revert to common sense. If you are a member of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or any other group that has a beef with America, as they've all had, and now you're calling for revenge because you've suffered many, many casualties over the years at the hands of America, and you've seen this massive retreat out of Afghanistan that was called for by our President Joe Biden, showing America at its weakest, wouldn't you then say, look at this, weak president in dealing with Afghanistan and the Taliban, weak mayor in dealing with crime and other problems in the city, making New York City once again extraordinarily vulnerable to a terrorist attack. So I call for transparency. I call for DCPI. I call for the police department, Commissioner Shea. I call for the mayor to tell us the specificity of how many men and women are assigned to anti-terrorist activity, whether it's part of the Intel Division run by John Miller, the Counterterrorism Unit run by John Miller, or the Strategic Response Group, which originally had 600, now 500. John Miller's group, originally 1,400, now only 1,036, a reduction of 26%. We are vulnerable. We are liable to be attacked again. And I don't trust, and I don't think most of New York City residents trust Bill de Blasio, mayor, to oversee this. So I'd like some transparency. I'd like some information. And with all the crime that we've had, obviously on a daily basis, you see it mostly in the Bronx and Brooklyn now, it's obvious that the number one duty of the New York City Police Department is not just to provide safety for residents in the streets, in the subways, and in the parks, but the most important element of our New York City Police Department is to protect us from another terrorist attack. And I will say it's coming. We don't know when, but somewhere in the caves of Yemen or Iraq or Afghanistan or some other port of call they're planning, on a day in which 20 of the terrorists responsible for the multiple attacks in Paris in 2015 go on trial, and the nation there is gearing maybe for some blowback from supporters of those terrorists, I would suggest that Mayor de Blasio is asleep at the wheel and always just telling us everything's okay, don't worry, we've got everything handled. We cannot trust this mayor. We need some transparency. And hopefully, as a result of men and women who bravely have provided me with this updated information, this will be rectified, men and women will be transferred, and we can get our numbers up so we can remain safe and secure as, once again, New York City is target number one of those terrorists who would like to make it 3 times the charm. Any questions? Appreciate it. Obviously, I hope what I'm saying does not become a reality. I happen to notice that down at World Trade Center, the World Trade Center command was filled with uniformed police officers, which was a good sight earlier today when new Governor Hochul was being given a tour of the World Trade Center Memorial by former Mayor Michael Bloomberg. I don't doubt that the World Trade Center Command Center is fully staffed, but it's the rest of the agencies, many of them housed at the Army Terminal, the Bush Terminal, along the BQE, and other ports of call throughout the city that have been depleted of their ranks. Thank you.